The Pugs and Parker stream for a Monday evening. Let's bring Parker in. There he is. Hey, I got to turn my camera on. There we go. Okay. There he is. All right. What's going on, James?
Man, I'm fired up. I don't know if I had too much caffeine today or just feel with good vibes, or maybe I haven't, just exercise, eat right, stay in school. I don't know. I'm ready to go.
Sorry, I was just reading Byron's text there. Yeah, me too. I was going to try and watch the Stars game. That's probably why we don't have E tonight, because it's a big Stars game night. A lot of people watching the Stars game.
Well, people playing hockey,
Yeah.
I like hockey. Hockey's a great game. I totally appreciate the sport. I really like one of the great sports games of all time is NHL on.
Is it really? Wait. Is it really? Seriously, are you just saying that out of programming, or do you honestly think one of the great sports is NHL hockey? Because I think it is easily the worst of the four major sports.
No. You missed one key qualifier there in the video game world. Hockey translates amazingly well to video games, and they mastered it like when I was in high school. Like when NHL '94 came out, that was probably my favorite game for about 4 years, and it's still great. And the other one is soccer, because it's a lot like hockey, but that translates to video games very well. And I've spent more hours playing hockey in the video game form than I have watching the actual sport.
I am what could easily be described as the world's greatest fair weather fan. I will, I guess, if I had to be a fan of a team, it would be my Chicago Blackhawks. And when they were winning Stanley Cups a couple of years ago, I was watching every game. I was Mr. Hockey. But I honestly don't care about the sport enough to root on a middle tier team. You know what I mean? But with my baseball teams,
to the sport, I think you have the same problem I have in the fact that I love soccer, but I am not watching 83 games per season of anything. I love football, but if the Dallas Cowboys played 83 games, I'm missing 70 of them.
Oh, see, no, you're wrong. See, because my baseball team plays 162, and I will watch 162 baseball games this year.
You will not. You watch all the games.
I've seen just about every White Sox game for the last 5 seasons easily, ever since I've been able to record and then watch them in fast forward. So, I mean, I don't watch the full 3. I can get through a Major League Baseball game, 9 innings, in about an hour and 10 minutes.
But do you realize, I'm sure you do, that's like a commitment of like a month and a half's worth of work?
Well, it's every night. It's every night.
If it was an 8-hour-a-day job, that would be like 6 weeks worth of work.
Well, I mean, is it? I mean, how much TV news do you watch? Do you watch an hour of Fox News a night? A lot of people do. A lot of people watch more than that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just watch an hour of baseball. Like I said, I can get through a game. Now it's harder because the pitch clock is sped it up a little. But it used to be I could just hit my forward arrow on the computer when I'm watching it on the computer, because I have to watch all my games on the computer.
30-second clock.
Perfect 30-second jump, and it would jump right to the next pitch. But now with the pitch clock, I'm all screwed up.
See, that's the perfect thing about football is the snap clock is 40 seconds. So as soon as they set the ball, you hit fast forward to 30 seconds, and they're probably about to start the next play. It's perfect.
If you do it the minute you hear the whistle. The minute the play is the minute the whistle, just hit fast forward. And
I have my own little sport going on with the remote control, and it's like a little archery precision thing. It's beautiful.
And you'd be surprised how little you miss the prattlings on of a Joe Buck or a Troy Aikman. You don't need that shit. No, I mean, if something interesting happens, then you stop and watch it. If there's a controversial play. But most of the time, you just skip 30 seconds ahead in between every play, and it's just play after play after play after play.
All right, look who decided to grace this. It's the great Emil.
Oh, there he is. All right, now he's here.
All right. Now that you're
Sorry, I was a little tardy. I got caught on the phone.
All right. Guest?
Well,
are we done with small talk? Can we do guest now?
Well, yeah. I suppose. I just thought there would be a smoother way to do that.
No, this is the offering. Pugs, do you have anything else? Emil, do you have anything that you've only been on for about 10 seconds to offer before I bring the guest on?
I'm offering an apology. I'm sorry I'm late.
Oh, that's fine, dude.
All right. So what we've been doing here the last couple of months, it seems like that. It's been this month. And
it has been.
A good chunk of last month has been conducting interviews for the podcast Who Killed Live 105.3. a Pugs and Parker with E production, brought to you by the good folks at RadioMisfits.com. You got to get all the sponsors. You got to get all the producers involved. Got to give everybody credit. To that end, James, why don't you tell us who we got tonight? We've got an important one because, as I said earlier, it's difficult for us to get people who existed at the radio station before I did. Like I'm trying to get the lay of the land before I ever showed up, and we got one tonight, don't we, James?
We have a crossover. This is the great Larry Stanley, and if you don't know Larry Stanley, let us go ahead and introduce you to Larry Stanley, who was part of Young Country 105.3 before it was Live 105.3. One of the few who made it through the gauntlet that was the brutal transition into the Talk That Rocks Texas, and survived well into the talk version of the 105.3.
Oh yeah, Larry was among other things. He pretty much did everything. You were Bob's APD for a while, right? That was a nice title that they gave you. And he was Larry had a weekend show, a crazy weekend show. We'll talk about that a little bit. What else? I mean, promotion, everything. Larry was the everything guy at that station. He was kind of Bob's right-hand guy, at least when I first showed up, right? I mean, you were doing a lot of stuff for Bob and handling that kind of stuff. Larry Stanley, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, guys. How are you? Good to see you.
Fantastic. All right. So before Live 105.3 existed, you were at Young Country. Give me the backstory. How did you end up there, and what were you doing up and through that point?
Well, so 105.3, I started as a promotion assistant, and I came in just at the right time when everybody was jumping ship because they knew the Young Country was about to die, right? The format was about to change. So I went from handing out T-shirts to on the air in like 2 weeks to like weekend overnights, because nobody else would work that shift. And then the overnight guy left, so then I moved into the full-time overnight guy, which led me into being the last DJ on Young Country right before they flipped over to 105.3 to Talk to Rocks.
So you had to handle the switchover if you were the last Young Country. Did you hit the button? Did you fire the new sounder? Was that you?
No, so that was a real crazy morning. So I was there, and like Bob let me do whatever I wanted to that last night. So we were just playing songs and taking calls. People were talking about how they grew up listening to Young Country. And I'm 19 years old, man. I grew up listening to Young Country. I was a mess. I was crying on the air. I was upset.
Wait a second.
Hang on. Young Country's only been around for like 8 years, right?
I was going to say, Young Country was invented in 95. Who grew up?
So I was in high school, right? I was 12 years old. Now I'm 19, 20 years old at 105.3 Young Country on the air. All through high school, listen to that station. And so yeah, I felt like I grew up with the station, and now I'm killing it, and I'm upset. And I never thought I was going to be on the air again after Young Country went off the air.
So, where'd you go to high school?
Cedar Hill.
Okay. So you're where all the radio towers are.
Yeah, exactly. So I could see all the radio towers from my backyard growing up.
So, Larry,
do you understand that hill though? The hill. You can see it when you're driving on I-20 if you're going through the south of Dallas, but it's the high point of Dallas County, and it's where like 8 radio towers of all the major clusters have their antennas up, and it is just a monument to broadcasting right there. And for Larry to say he could see it from his backyard, it's pretty funny because like where I'm from in the middle of nowhere, Bug Tussle, it's like that's the center of the universe, that little broadcast.
Oh, you know what that's like? You know what my version of that, the Chicago version of that, is the John Hancock building.
You mean the Sears Tower?
Not John Hancock. All the transmitters and radio studios are in the John Hancock, and not the Sears Tower. I think the television TV stations are on the Sears Tower, but all the radio is on the John Hancock. So it's like every single station in one spot, the highest point. Larry, let me ask you about the end of the Young Country when you were there, because I'm always interested in how people. You knew a format flip was coming, right? I mean, like, how long in advance did you know, and what was your first inkling of what the format was going to be? When did you find that out?
So yeah, we knew. We knew the format flip was coming. Everybody started jumping ship. Katie Britt was the assistant program director 2 APDs before I was, but she's the one that actually put me in programming, and then she left about 2 weeks later. So she was gone. Then Jim Verdi was there, and we kept on hearing rumors that we're going to flip. Cody McCoy left. And, so about 2 weeks out, that's when we got, hey, like it trickled down from Bob and Reed to the staff. We're going talk. Rush Martin's coming over. And so Stern was still up.
They announced that to the staff?
Yeah, they announced that to the staff. They announced it to the city. The memo was out. It was on like the newscast around town. So it was out.
So there was, and excuse me for interrupting, but there was a period of time on Young Country where there were jocks on the air who knew that they were going to be fired.
Yeah, we made a big joke and a big party out of it for like 2 weeks. We were all joking about it, and we were joking. We were sad. We were like, "Hey, we're not going to be here tomorrow." And Bob and Reed were just really hands off that last 2 weeks, where they were just like, we don't care what you guys do. Just don't. Bob told me, just don't lose the license. Go do whatever, because we're going to be talking.
Well, that's funny that you bring up Reed, because I forgot that he had just shown up. So Reed was probably there. Was Reed there before you or after you? Did he arrive after you were already there?
Yeah, Reed started right before I did. And I remember being scared to death of the name Reed Reeker, because everybody told me Reed was the guy coming to kill Young Country, and he was going to fire us all. And he was this big bully that was coming in to clean house. So I didn't even want to meet Reed, but then after I met him, he was a super nice guy. So
yeah, Reed's awesome. But the reason I said that is because now that I'm putting this timeline together, I was working with Reed at the station in Chicago where he was. And Reed had created the show that I was on, Pugs and Kelly. He took me from one show and Kelly from another and said, "Let's give this a try." Reed was just like that. So Reed came to Kelly and I when we were we were having some problems at the station. We were doing very well, but we were fighting with somebody at the station. It was becoming a problem because we were fighting with a very popular person. And Reed came to us and Reed said, "Well, I got to tell you, man, they want me out of here. I'm going to be leaving. I'm going to be heading down to Texas. And I'm basically going to do this down there." Now, this had to have been almost a year before they actually flipped, right? Because you were there for a period of time before they flipped.
Yeah, I was there about midway through 1999, and I think we flipped midway in 2000, so about 6 months. And jumping ahead just a little bit, Pugs, I was offered the gig to be your very first producer at 105.3. Bob offered me the gig to produce your overnight show.
Is that how we got Tommy? What, was Tommy waiting in your car? Tommy was our first producer, and he was high school friends with Larry. How did we get Tommy and not you? Not that there's anything wrong with Tommy. I like Tommy Bowles.
Yeah. So Bob, the offer was, "Hey, Larry, you can produce Pugs and Kelly, or you can produce Howard Stern." And I didn't know what producing Howard Stern locally meant, and I didn't know who Pugs and Kelly were, but I knew Howard Stern's name. So I was like, "Dude, I'm going for Stern. I don't know who these Pugs and Kelly people are."
Bad decision, man. We'd have put you on the air every day. You sat there silently pushing Howard's buttons like a nudnik. You made a bad decision, Larry. We liked you. We would have turned you out. We made you out.
Yeah, that was a bad decision, man. But name recognition, I didn't know what. I was young and dumb. What that.
So you have information in your head that none of the rest of us have, because I was not there for day one of 105.3, the Talk That Rocks Texas. Pugs wasn't there. Emil wasn't there. None of us were there except for you or Bob, and we didn't even ask him. But what was the date, as close as you can nail it, when it flipped from Young Country to 105.3, the Talk That Rocks Texas?
It was it was after April 1st in 2000, early April 2000. I don't remember the exact date, April 3rd, 4th. I know they didn't want to do it on April Fool's Day, but early April 2000.
Yeah.
All right. That's nice.
I never knew that until right this minute.
Stations always flip in the spring and fall. Almost always. They never spring in the winter. They never flip in the winter or the summer, because the summer is dead because everybody's vacationing. So they just leave whatever it is as it is, and they don't do Christmas because they sell the Christmas stuff in July. So you got to keep Christmas. So if any station, all stations flip in April or October. Yeah.
I have a question for Larry. Did you survive the Bob McNeil to Gavin transition, or were you gone by then?
No, I was gone by then. Bob fired me. I think they called it Black Friday. I got fired. The Dane Lewis show got fired that day. I think the Misha show got fired that day. They laid off like 20 of us in one day, and I was just part of that.
Was it all the weekend people?
Yeah, well, it was Dan Lewis, his whole show. I think Mrs. whole show got laid off that day. I got laid off that day, and I don't remember who
But
all
getting
survived
laid
that.
off from your show, I mean, you were an important cog in the machinery that ran that station every day. That I wouldn't have let you go. I would,
Yeah, obviously not too important. I mean, they replaced me with,
Yeah.
So, well, tell the story about how you left. Like, how did you find out that you were fired, or how did you find out that you were let go?
Bob just called me into his office and said, "Hey, budget cuts, gotta let you go." And the funny thing is, Bob let me keep the key to the building. He's like, "Hey, you're fired, but you want to do some production work? You can keep your key and go in there and do some production." I'm like, "No, thanks, Bob. I'm not coming back up here, dude."
Let me tell you something. The more we hear these stories, Bob McNeil and Reed, and we'll just use those two because they're the ones that pertain to this particular story. They are the last of like the old school radio managers. Like everybody after them were like just corporate drones, letting you keep the key. Like I could see Bob going, "Well, we might need Larry around here again, so keep it." I mean, I could see him think, or not being a ball, but he probably fired you in the coolest way possible. I don't know. I don't want to speak for it, but I mean, there was a time when. There was a time when your radio management, whether it was your general manager or your program director, were just dudes you worked with. Yes, they were your bosses, but you could actually talk to them. And then at some point in the mid-2000s, they all became people transferred from out of market. All program directors at stations I worked for were dudes from somewhere else who were young, inexpensive, and I don't know. I miss the old days of having the owner of the station with his own office right there at the station, but we ain't getting back to that anytime soon. James, you had a question? Or I'm sorry, one of you guys? I thought one of you guys were.
Okay,
no, I was interested.
Yeah, going back to the day I got fired, like Reed, again, this is how cool Reed was. So I got fired, and I called Reed and left him a voicemail. He called me back, and he gave me actually Gavin Spittle's number in Vegas. Said, "Larry, call this guy if you want to move to Vegas. He'll get you a job at the radio station out there." I never did. I wasn't ready to move to Vegas at that point, but Reed called me, and then like 2 days later, Reed was gone. So
yeah. Well, they moved Reed down to San Antonio, but anyway, you cut it. They made a market manager down there, but still, he'd rather have stayed in Dallas. Yeah,
That's interesting that Gavin's name appears this early in the transaction.
Yeah.
And then you go from there to Bob McNeil. You know what I mean? That's an interesting twist that we had no idea. Thanks, Larry. That was good.
We established with talking to Bob that it was basically, I mean, I'd always known this was the case, but it was a pay dump, right? Bob was a high management guy in that company for years and years. He earned a certain salary, and they could just go get a guy from a smaller market and give him the break of his life and pay him half, right? So that's why Bob left. He was just too expensive. And
but I mean, the fact that Gavin was in there and suggested,
it's like he was being groomed,
right? Yeah, and then
absolutely.
somehow he circled back in. That's kind of, I don't want to say, it's very radio-ish.
Yeah,
and he's already in the conversation.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
agreed.
Yes.
All right, so Larry, you also did a show on the station. Why don't you tell us a little bit? What was it called? It was the
Well, I did a couple of them. The Buzz is probably the first
Buzz!
one with Tommy. Yeah.
With Buzz,
Tommy, right?
Tommy and Larry.
Was it a drinking show?
Oh, they were awful, man. Look, I loved them, and it was a fun show, but they were just, it was like, Larry, with all due respect, we talk about how skanky that station was. you guys were like the king skanks on weekend. Strippers, frat boys drunk in the parking lot, throwing parties at 2 a.m. Great. Tell people about the Buzz.
So, yeah, that was one of our big things. I know you used to come hang out, Pugs. We called it a parking lot party because we were 21-year-old kids on the air Friday and Saturday nights from midnight to 2 a.m. So we couldn't go out to the show. So we thought we'd bring the party to us. So we would just tell everybody, "Hey, here's the station address on Merritt Drive. Bring your own beer. Let's drink beer in the parking lot after the show." And listeners would show up with cases of beer, and we would just drink in the parking lot.
It was an electric gate that closed automatically, so you could have like a big giant parking lot party. The police couldn't come in. The gates were electric. They were closed. You were on private property. It was essentially on Saturday nights. I remember we'd be out running around. We'd be like, "Let's swing by the station, see what's happening." It was basically like a high school backyard keg party every Saturday night going on in the parking lot, and management didn't care.
Was it broadcast live?
Yes. How do you think we knew to stop by? Yes, it was.
Yeah, Billy the Kid used to come by. All the cool radio guys used to come by our parking lot parties after.
Oh.
They would all show up. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. Management knew, Bob was like, "That's good for the station. That's probably, I don't want to know about it. If anything bad happens, I didn't know about it." But
that's so funny in today's context where all of radio, whether it's AM, FM, talk, whatever the format you're talking about, they're like, how can we reach younger listeners? And here's one way to do it. Have a 21-year-old radio host having parking lot parties at your station on Saturday night. You don't think we were reaching the younger demographics? There's a reason we did so good with younger demographics.
yeah, there's also a reason we don't do that anymore.
And there's a reason we should start doing it again.
Yeah, because how many people actually got sued? CBS never got sued because someone got into a car accident after a live 105.3 Larry Stanley Buzz party. That never happened.
I think if we do a party in the studio, Larry Stanley needs to come and host the first one. I mean. I didn't know that's how this started. Wow.
Do you know how wild that sounds, though, in modern times, that there was a station that had a live local talk show from midnight to 2 a.m.?
Right.
Weekends?
Right. Weekends, no less. Live and local. So tell us about the Buzz. Tell us about what the Buzz was. It was you and Tommy and Johnny, right? Who else was on that show?
Yeah, Paco sat in a lot on our show. Our friend Paco, he was up there a lot with us. But yeah, so that was the main guys. It was me, Johnny. It was me and Tommy on the Buzz, and then Tommy got fired from the station, and Johnny and I did our own show, Larry and Johnny show, after Tommy got fired.
Oh, Johnny wasn't a part of the Buzz. For some reason, I remember.
He sat in and filled in. He was just kind of like he was there, but it was mainly just me and Tommy on the Buzz, and Johnny was just there as our yuck monkey or whatever you're gonna call him. And then when Tommy got fired, Johnny and I started our own show because I needed somebody else to go along with. And
I remember the first time these memories, they keep coming back when I have these conversations with people, things I hadn't really thought about. But I do remember when we were still in Chicago doing overnights. We were working in Chicago. We were doing the overnight show to here. And I remember we planned a weekend trip where we came down on a Saturday night and we threw a party at Jack's over by, wherever that is over there, Greenville or whatever. And we didn't know what to expect because we didn't, we were just like, come on out to party. We friggin' packed that place. I mean, that was what Kelly and I were like, this is crazy. This is like, we're just an out of town show. But it was after that night at Jack's where I think it was the first time I went over to the Buzz parking lot where you guys were all drinking. We were being taken around.
You know what?
This is nuts.
The party was at Jack's because that was my local bar that I hung out at, and they let me drink for free if I promoted them on the radio station. That's why your party was at Jack's. Huh?
Okay, that's it. And you were talking about Jack's on the radio, but because you guys had to work during it, or you guys had to, I don't remember what it was. Anyway, that was, boy, God, it's hard to imagine. That was 20
now check this out. Anal Pugs, everyone else watching. Larry Stanley also has very important information in his head that we all wish we had. Give us the very first lineup. Dude, we're doing a documentary on Live 105.3 and none of us can name the first lineup, but Larry can.
All right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the very first lineup was Russ Martin mornings. It was Ed Till middays from 10 to 3. Like, I think they replayed the first hour twice, or the first and second hour twice. So Ed Till was on 10 to 3. Then A.W. Pantoja and Jimbo, Tom Likas, Love Lines, John and Jeff. That was the first lineup.
John and Jeff. Yeah, those were the ones that came off when we started to do the show.
Yeah, they were out at L.A., and they actually had a falling out with Russ, and that led to them getting yanked off the station. I don't know if
Imagine that.
Yeah. So,
nice.
Yeah, there was a big fallout with them and Russ, and I don't know if that was before or after they had planned for you guys to come in, Pugs, but that got
what do you
pretty
know about that fallout? Tell me that story.
So, well, Russ would, come on at 6 a.m. and start making fun of John and Jeff, and they were really, really bad. I mean, they were just very, if you watch like Skip and Shannon, I'm going to take this opinion, and I'm going to take this opinion, and we're going to argue and debate for an hour and take calls. And that was the John and Jeff show overnight. And so Russ would come on the air at 6 a.m. and make fun of him. Well, callers started calling into John and Jeff saying, hey, this local guy in Dallas is making fun of you. And then John and Jeff on their overnight show, syndicated show, started making fun of Russ, and Next thing you know, John and Jeff are gone. And so,
Oh boy. Yeah.
I was so young and stupid when I worked at 105.3, I swear, because the day they got fired, I actually booked, I don't remember if it was John or Jeff, to come on to the bus and tell us their side of the story. And Dan Lewis is the guy, Ross Martin's producer, that talked me out of it. He's like, you may not want to do that, dude. You may not want to do this kind of so I was like, okay, I guess not. So.
You don't need to poke the bear. When you're the Buzz, you don't need to poke the bear. You need you need to be with the bear. You be on the bear's side.
It sucks though when the bear like kind of pulls that rank and you identify that there's something that might want to be heard here, but you can't do it because that guy's trying to protect his turf. And you found yourself in that same spot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have any other run-ins with Russ Martin?
Yeah, so I kind of heard,
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when we first split, I went from the overnight DJ at Young Country to the overnight board op at 105.3 to Talk the Rocks, right? And Russ was the morning guy. And so Russ would come on the air in the mornings, at least once a week, and he'd be like, Larry screwed this up, and Larry messed this up, and we'll even go back before that. So the first day Russ went on the air, do you guys remember Lee Harris?
Yeah.
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 Okay, so I was upset. Young Country was off the air. Lee shows up at the station with a six-pack, and we were drinking it in my truck in the parking lot at 6 in the morning and listening to Russ, and Russ starts bagging on me. Well, I'm about 3 beers in at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I tell Lee, if he mentions my name one more time, I'm going to go bust in his studio. And he mentioned my name one more time, so good to my word, I went and busted into his studio. This recording's out there. Dan Lewis has it on his YouTube channel. So Russ and I have a little verbal altercation where he takes me to task, but he's kind of nice about it. And, Bob and Reed shake my hand on the way out, but that was the first time Russ and I got into it. The very first day, like 30 minutes into the show.
Was that a bit, or you're telling me that was legitimate?
So, yeah, for
Because
me,
I'm interested in how this goes because when I heard, hold on one second, hold on, Larry, hold on, because whenever I hear these things, when people say, "Yeah, it was just a bit," we were yelling at each other. It always seems like if it's a bit, Russ is like a hard ass. But if he's actually shocked that somebody confronted him, all of those stories go the way you just did. Where he was actually kind of nice about it because he's shocked that somebody is actually confronting him and he doesn't have control of it because it's not a bit. This is actually really happening. So that was interesting that you said that.
Yeah, this was not a bit at all on my end. I was half drunk at 6 in the morning and busted into his studio. So I wasn't involved in any bit. And the tape's out there on Dan's YouTube channel if you guys want to go listen to it. But then after that, Russ would constantly get on the air and go, Larry left this screwed up and Larry didn't fix this. And I would call in on the hotline on my way home and I would start yelling at Russ and he'd talk me down and yell at me and do what you're saying, Pugs. And then I would steam all day. I wouldn't sleep. I would just be so furious, mad at Russ. And then I would talk myself up like, Russ is going to walk in here and I'm just going to punch him in his face and I'm going to get fired, but it's going to be worth it. And then Russ would walk up and he would just pat me on the shoulder and go, hey, good bit yesterday, Larry. Thanks for calling in. And I would just be like, son of a, okay.
Yeah. A bit for you, not a bit for me, jerko.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so besides that, I mean, Russ was pretty cool to me, all things considered. I know you guys have nightmare stories about him after I left, but when I was there being a young, dumb kid, he was always...
Well, this is the thing, because we've heard this from a number of people now, and it seems to me that there was a change that occurred with Russ around the time that you left. It seems to be that after Bob and Reed left, that he became difficult, that he became much more empowered. It's almost as if he had some respect for Reed and Bob's authority, and then when they were no longer there and there were new people there, then it became became a shit show. Everybody's a substitute teacher, and he's how kids behave when they get a substitute teacher. So you may have been exposed to nice Russ. I was never exposed to nice Russ.
Yeah, I think I was exposed to nice Russ, and we seemed to hate the same people when we were working together, and when we would chat in the mornings. We didn't like Johnny and Jeff. We didn't like Ron and Don, so we kind of bonded a little bit over that stuff. So, we would chat about that, and, Russ would always be on my side on that stuff, so that was kind of cool. And Russ used to come up to me and he's like, "Hey, Larry, I played a Buzz promo today. I didn't even have to. I just threw it on my show." I'm like, "Cool, dude. Thanks."
See, now those are genuinely nice gestures on his
Yeah.
part, and I'm starting to wonder if we're seeing that the people who
Challenge him.
challenge it, but I challenged them and it didn't go well. I mean, it just made it even worse. I mean, maybe
But you had a girl partner.
You were a threat. You were a major day part middays. I was a weekend overnight 20-something-year-old punk kid. Russ probably didn't see me as a threat. I was just a kid at the radio station to him. I wasn't a serious contender to take his job or his spot or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. But it is nice for me to hear that people do have moments like what you just told, where he showed a side of him that we haven't necessarily heard a whole lot of. We have heard a couple of people say, though. I can't remember who, but I mean, there have been a couple of people who have said good things, and that's good because I don't want this to just be. My lens says that he's an asshole, but this whole podcast cannot just be that. That's unfair. This has got to be a fully fleshed out story from everybody's perspective. So that's good to know.
When you hear this part of it from Larry, right? And then you go, okay, maybe like I didn't have all that together. Maybe I just wasn't on the right team. Like that's kind of what goes through your head. Like, okay, let me jump on that ship. Maybe I wasn't on the right team. But then when you get to the way that those ships sunk or got hit with torpedoes with people that were on that team, and how then he handled the exit of it, like, okay, we're going to a meeting and everybody pick up the tab. You're on, like those exits seem like they were less than team player like, if that makes any sense.
Did we ask Dan about that? I don't remember if we got the story on that. That's one of the more famous Russ Martin stories. When they were fired, he took his entire staff out to lunch, told them they were all fired, and then asked for separate checks. Did Dan O'Malley?
Dan O'Malley did confirm that.
Because that was written about in the Richie Witt expose. One of the instances where.
All right, Larry. So where did you go after Live 105.3? I know you ended up at the ranch and like 10 other places since then.
He was at the ranch for a while.
He didn't quit, man. He hadn't had a boring day yet. So where'd you go afterwards?
He's a filmmaker.
Yeah, 95.9, the ranch is where I went right after. And James, I just found this out today. I think I missed you by like 3 months in Woodward, Oklahoma.
You went to Woodward?
I went to Woodward. I was at K101 for about 3 months, and that town sucked so bad. I couldn't take it. I could not take it.
I was there for a year, and I loved it.
Big fish, small pond.
Oh my god!
James, did you get the big fish, small pond treatment? Did you?
Bro, in Dallas, I'm like a 6, maybe a 7 on a good night. In Woodward, Oklahoma, I'm almost a 9. Like I'm so good up there. It was
great. And a local celebrity.
Two stories about Woodward, real quick. First night there at the radio station, sales guy takes me to a bar. James, I'm sure you went there. It was a barn or like a double wide in the middle of a field. Sales guy hands the bartender a blank check and says, "This is how I run my tab here," and gives the bartender a blank check. I'll come fill it out the amount at the end of the week when I get paid for it.
Oh man, that's great.
Oh, dude, you don't understand. This place, it was like working in the Patrick Swayze movie Roadhouse. So, look, not to get off on a Woodward branch for a second, but I did work there for a year.
No, please do.
All right, so there was a place there called there's only like 4 bars in town. The Peppermint Lounge, which is where the white trash goes. There was Jack's, which is like the cool hip happening place with the big dance floor and the dartboards and the pool tables. They got everything, bro. And then there was Roosters that was actually in the lobby of the Holiday Inn, and so that was where the older people hung out. But hey, if you want a MILF, that's where it goes down. But so I was on. There's 2 stations there, a country station and Z92, and so I got to be the weekend DJ at Jack's, which was the cool place. Oh. And it went so bad.
What do you mean so bad?
I had to put a
Hold on, Larry. Are you familiar with Jack's? Do you know Jack's and
I don't
Woodward?
remember the names of the bars. Now I saw that double wide in the middle of the field that was called a bar.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but that's not Jack's. Jack's is like if you have like the General Steel building of like someone's boat pavilion, and they converted that into a bar. You know,
I'm Google mapping Woodward, Oklahoma. Go ahead. Tell
right,
me.
yeah, go ahead. I had to put a sign up because I'm telling you, I was in Roadhouse. I had to put a sign up in the DJ booth that says, "Please do not punch the DJ in the face."
That's how bad it went.
Yeah, because I got punched in the face bad one time. Oh, I mean, it was a chick.
Because of the music you were playing, or because you were
No.
trying to bang milfs?
Okay, so here's like Jack's had a tradition that if it was your birthday and you came up, you would get the birthday blowjob shot, where your significant other would sit in a chair in the middle of the dance floor with the shot in their lap, and you would have to, with your hands behind your back, get on your knees and take the shot out of their lap. You know, you just with your mouth take the shot, and enough people see it because it happens every freaking night, probably about 3 times, right? And really, it's a kind of a pain in the ass when people do that on the Saturday night and the dance floor is packed and everybody's having a party and we got to stop everything down for someone's freaking birthday, right? So you kind of want to like hurry through it. So I was about 6 tequila shots deep in the one of the little blowjob, someone's birthday, and I'm like, hey, Brittany, get your fat ass out here, or I'm gonna start the next song in 10 seconds. Well, she didn't get out there, and I started the next song and whatever. So they were number 1 pissed that I ruined their blowjob shot, and number 2 that I called her fat because it turned out she really was fat, and I didn't know what she looked like, right?
Oh my God!
Yeah,
The new you show.
Huh?
Look at the new you
God,
show.
no. And look, of all the thousands of times I did that joke, it usually kills because the girl's not fat. She's usually beautiful. She's like 23 and just like jumped off of a wheat combine and came in her farmer's daughter's outfit that looks beautiful. Like they did have some hot chicks over there. But yeah, this one didn't take it so well because her and her husband had been estranged because he had cheated on her because she had gained a bunch of weight after the baby and she is kind of fat now. And I end up getting punched in the face.
By who? Her?
Yeah, by her, and then like her.
Hey, let me ask you a question. I'm trying to find old Jax here. Where is Jax in relation to the Dairy Queen? I'm looking at Woodward, Oklahoma. I don't see Jax.
There's only like 2 streets in Woodward. I should be able to find.
I'm at Oklahoma Avenue, and I see a bar called Long Shots Bar and Grill.
Oh no,
I'm back at the punch in the face. So did that end your radio career in Woodward?
No, I did fine. After that, I stayed around. I left Woodward because I got a job on Sirius Satellite Radio, and
Okay. All
yeah,
right.
He could still be there. He could still be rocking Woodward.
So were you live on the air when she punched you?
no.
No?
The DJ gig was separate from my radio gig.
Okay. All right. I thought you were broadcasting live from Jack's DJing, and then she came up and cracked you on maybe like a break.
No, it wasn't a live broadcast. Jack, though, was smart because he knew if he hired the guy from the radio to do his weekend DJ gig that I would talk about it during the week on the air. And of course I did. Absolutely, yeah.
I'm, Woodward, Oklahoma isn't even in like tolerable Oklahoma. It's like up near the Axe Handle. It's like up near Kansas. It's way up there. It's like north of both Tulsa and Oklahoma City. This looks terrible.
North of Tulsa.
Yeah.
It's on the opposite side of the state from Tulsa. I left Woodward because I was sick of the town, but it was a Saturday night and I was at one of the bars and I met this girl and we were hanging out. Nothing was really going on. We were just hanging out, right? Talking, chatting in a bar. And leave by myself, go back to my hotel room. Sunday morning, 8 a.m., like the traffic director at the station, the guy that scheduled the commercials, calls me in my hotel room, 8 a.m., Sunday morning. I'm hungover. And he's like, hey, I heard you were with my cousin last night. What are your intentions? Dude, who is your cousin? And no, I don't know what you heard, but I was like, screw this town. I am so out of here. So,
You got chased out of town by a shotgun, huh? That's what it sounds like. Man, This place looks terrible. This place looks like it's like 100 miles outside of Oklahoma City and like 120 outside of Tulsa. You're in the middle of nowhere, man.
Yeah.
You're
So
closer to
look,
Dodge City, Kansas than anything else.
it was looking back, it was fantastic. But when you're there, you're like, oh my god, I hope I don't get stuck here. But if I knew now what I knew, if I knew then what I know now, that I would only be there for a year, it would have been a total freaking party. Because I also learned some hard lessons. Because I'm from a place where it doesn't snow ever. Like maybe 6 times in my life did it snow over here in Bug Tussle where I live now. And so up there in Woodward, Oklahoma, because it's almost to the Panhandle. I mean, it's almost to Colorado. It snowed and the snow stayed on the ground for like 4 months, and I was blown away. I'd never seen that before. And so there's a rule of etiquette that if a girl stays the night at your house and you smash, apparently you're supposed to, the next day when she has to go to work, you're supposed to go down and start her car 10 minutes before she has to leave. So
Brush the snow off of it, James. The windshield,
You
get
go
all
Buffalo,
that handled.
Buffalo
yeah.
and Chicago can't believe that you didn't think that this was required. That you go out and
So
you
you
clean the
confirm
girl's
that's a real
car up.
thing, because this is my only experience with it, and I like.
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah. So this is
Yes,
great
it's a
because
real thing.
Animal is from Buffalo and
Right.
Pugs is from Chicago. So this is the real thing that I just screwed up. Like,
James, let me tell you this. My wife, I had done mornings for about 4 years and I'd gotten switched. So I was waking up at 3:30 in the morning. My wife at the time had a job with the city of Chicago. She had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. So she left at like 6 a.m.
yeah,
Even when I wasn't doing mornings, I would wake up, I would go down to the garage, I would make sure her car was all warm. If there was any ice, right? That's just what dudes do for their ladies in cold weather. It is not required, but it's expected.
man.
If you're gonna stay the dude, that's what you do, because other dudes are doing it.
Yeah, and other dudes aren't doing it. And that's how you set yourself
Well,
up.
but I mean, if you're gonna stay the dude, you kind of like
Yeah.
you're doing those things. It's like you got to keep the sidewalk clear of ice,
Oh,
so
God.
when they're walking out on their way to the car, they don't go down in their high heels.
See,
No.
and this is just like Larry's story where I go and look, I hook up with this beautiful redhead. I mean, big boobs, pale, just totally, just great attitude and everything. And for some reason, she went home with my dumb ass, and I got lucky. And then the next day, like when I didn't start her car and like scrape all the ice off, she got really mad. And I'm like, "What are you talking? Why are you yelling at me?" I don't know what you're talking about. She's like, "You can just treat me like a piece of trash, like I'm just some kind of cum dumpster." And you just, and she was like screaming at me at like 6 in the morning, and I have, no, like, I can't even process this, right? And then it was like the next weekend there was some sort of fundraiser where the station and some local businessmen like raised a bunch of money for like some battered women's shelter or something. And then we have like a banquet, and then afterwards we're like, let's just keep the party going and we'll go to Jack's, even though it's like 6 o'clock on a Sunday. You know, it's not party central. This is where decent people go to just have a drink. And this woman recognized me, she goes, "You're James from Z92. You're the guy who doesn't have the decency to go warm up a girl's car."
Ah, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't say anything about that on air. How do you even know that? She's like, "That's my daughter." And I was like,
Oh my. So,
Oh,
all right, dude, let me ask you. Okay, forget that it's there in Oklahoma. You're with the girl, you smash, she's at your place. She ended up at your place without a car. Okay, are you paying for her taxi home, or are you getting up and driving her home?
Either or, I would do either one. I'm quite familiar with most rules of etiquette. I just hadn't been introduced to the snow shit before, and I really screwed it up apparently.
Yeah,
No,
I think-
the either or being,
Yeah.
are you
Yeah.
choosing taxi, or are you
Yeah.
getting up
No,
and
I drive.
personally
I drive.
driving her home?
I get off my ass and drive them.
All right, very good. All right, that's
Okay.
the
You guys
proper.
didn't know we were 20 minutes on Woodward tonight, did you?
Hey, James, one last thing, and maybe E will be able to echo this.
Very Derek Jeter of you if you would give her like a gift bag.
Sure. A couple home run balls, maybe some old headphones that James
Yeah.
doesn't wear
Did
anymore.
you give her like any station, like Woodward? Did like Woodward have a bumper sticker?
Yeah,
Like some station swag you could have kind of like
prize
handed
pack.
her?
I had a prize pack from condoms to go.
and a nice nug of meth. Oklahoma's Woodward's finest meth rock, just right there in the back. James, here's something that he can back me up. I don't know if he ever had to do this too, but when you live in a cold climate like that and you have a girlfriend, this was something I found myself involved in high school, and I don't know how I got stuck in it. But when it snows really bad and you have a girlfriend, sometimes it's nice, and she might expect you to go over there and shovel her mom's driveway.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah, like that was like the way in.
Right.
That was definitely the way in. And in the winter, like it would get dark at like 5 o'clock. So if you wanted to see your girlfriend and go over there, like you were like hoping for a really bad snowstorm, you might actually get snowed in and spend the night over there. And then when her mom fell asleep, you get to have a little something. You know, I mean,
you had to take care of mom or grandma, especially if they all lived in the neighborhood. Could you do my grandma's steps?
They all lived in the neighborhood.
Right, they all lived in the neighborhood. Those people never left.
So you were in Woodward for what, 3 months?
Yeah, 3 months is all I could take of it. I had to get out of there, man.
What'd you do after that? How'd you get out?
I just left. I got in my car and I wrote the you probably the same guy probably owned the station you worked for, but I wrote Doug an email like, I'm done. I'm going to play poker tonight. I'll be in Dallas by 9 p.m. And so came here, and I think I met Bobby Garza and played poker as soon as I got back in town. So
yeah, that'd be the guy to meet.
J. Doug Williams, I think he died 3 years ago.
Oh yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I hadn't really kept tabs with anybody from Woodward, so I did hear he passed away though.
Hey, Larry, let me ask you a question. Because you just mentioned Bobby's poker games. That was an ongoing bit on our midday show that Bobby was a degenerate gambler and that he could never do good production because he was always worried about gambling debts. He was always looking over his shoulder. So we would try to give him to divulge information about these poker parties. And now you're telling me you played at one of Bobby's weekend poker parties that I was never invited to. And I don't know if he was doing a bit.
I played poker with Bobby every weekend. I mean, it was at Johnny Fever's house every weekend.
Yeah, so who was there? Who was, because he would never tell us who was there. It was all very secretive.
Larry's a degenerate gambler too. He's in the same crew.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
So
it sounds.
that game, it was Bobby and I, and then I don't know if I could say his name or not, but
what is the secret?
Yes,
It's 20 years later. What is the secrecy? Who else
well,
played?
Dave used to play up there with us some.
Dave who?
Stafford.
Oh, okay. Dave, one of our earliest friends from yeah. Okay. So
They
Dave
would go there and play. Patrick would play. There were some listeners that would come play, and we'd kind of take their money. And occasionally somebody from the state would pop up, and you know,
Bobby always made it. Didn't Kojak play? Did Kojak play? Bobby always made it sound like there were some money guys that would play.
So, I don't. There were money guys there, but I don't not from the station.
Yeah.
Different. There was like some New Jersey money guys there.
Yeah, it was always very secretive. And we're like, what is this? Is this going on like in a suite in some hotel? What? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, so from what I remember, Pugs used to get really mad because like Bobby would just no-show because he would be like on this gambling bender.
Yeah.
Were there times, Larry, where like you remember Bobby going, man, I've been here for like a day. I haven't been at my job. Like, was there any confession while he was in the process of these benders of doing that?
The games always started on Friday night around 7 p.m. in Allen, Texas, the poker house, little house that we play poker in Allen. The games would start Friday night at 7, and some weekends they wouldn't wrap up till Sunday night at 7 p.m. We would just play 3 days straight. It was a huge house, really, with extra bedrooms, so people would be crashed all over and then sleep and then get up and eat and take a shower in the house and just be back at the poker table playing. It was insane.
So Bobby, after a weekend of that, would then just probably oversleep, and Monday he wouldn't be there, and he'd be broke.
Yeah, Bobby drank his own urine once because he was in such bad debt. Still the greatest Bobby. I think I told him, we talked about this when he was on. Bobby needed money, and I said, well, what would you do for money? So I'd do just about anything. That's how badly I need money. I go, would you drink a glass of your own urine for $50? And he goes, I'd do it for $25. And I said, sold. So I paid him $25.
I hate that story.
It's a terrible story. But
Bobby is a good poker player, though. Bobby is a decent poker player. He's not bad.
Yeah.
He just
Bobby's a decent dude.
It's something he cared about.
I really enjoyed him when he called in. And he's in Vegas. That's the thing. Like a guy that's like tied up like that ultimately goes to Vegas, and that's where he's like.
What do you think? He moved to Vatican City?
But he's still there.
Bobby was into drugs, swinging, gambling, and whatever it was. Bobby was into something interesting.
Weed. Bobby was into weed.
Bobby needs his weed. Yeah, well, as I said, drugs, weed. He was into weed, he was into gambling, and he was into swinging.
Yeah, see, that was the funny thing. See, here, that's the funny thing about Bobby is Bobby was just like me, exaggerated. It's like, you know what? I like drinking a beer, maybe some bourbon, and Bobby would get trashed. I like, sometimes when you're at a party and people are passing around a J, let's take a hit. Bobby smoked weed all day, every day. And, sometimes it's fun to go to the roulette table and just put a bunch of money on black, see what happens. Bobby spends 3 days straight gambling. He was like me, but just like turned up to 11. And then there's Larry that's sort of like an echo of Bobby. Larry's like a functional Bobby. Larry has many of the same like foibles, but doesn't take it to the extreme, and has actually had a successful career and has done well. And it's like, what if Bobby like actually had a meter? He would be Larry.
The thing about those poker games, I would be the only one sitting in there, not doing drugs, not smoking weed. I would drink a little bit, but I'd be like the only somewhat sober one there, or only one drinking, not doing drugs. And I usually came out a winner because of that. So I was
beating up, right?
I'll never forget Bobby. It was the Van Halen show at the Smirnoff. And we were in some private backstage party area. It was just certain people on the radio station got me in there. And it was every like Dallas or Texas rocker. Every one of them. You were in a rock band. They were all there for Van Halen, man. All the Pantera guys, Drowning Pool guy. I mean, they were all there. They're all hanging out. And so Bobby was in there and I walked in with Bobby. And Bobby, because, Bobby's a metal guy. Bobby loves his 80s metal. He was going up to everybody. No fear in him at all. Like walking up to like, a dude. It's a dude from Guns N' Roses or whatever. Just big dudes, big rock stars. You just walk up to him one at a time and go, hey, man, Bobby. You want to go take a walk, get high? Like he said that to everybody. I stood there. I was in a circle with Dimebag Darrell and another member, Rex of Pantera, and a couple other people. I think Billy the Kid was there too. And Bobby just pokes in and goes, anybody want to take a walk and get high? Everybody just looks at him like, yeah, we're good, man. And he's like, all right. And he turns and walks away. The next day on the air, I remember there was an ongoing bit with Kelly and I going, you want to take a walk, get high? We kept saying that. He had no shame. He's just one of the most lovely people with no governor whatsoever. I love that guy. So, Larry, why don't you tell us a little bit about, wax poetic about the station. You got any thoughts overall about the station and why you think it went down the way it did and, what the problems were? What do you think when you look back?
Well, the problems all started after I left. So, when I was there, there was some problems, but they seemed to get they were dealt with pretty swiftly. I heard Bob talk about Ron and Don. They were a huge problem when they were there, but they weren't there long.
That's interesting. Were they real? I mean, so tell me about because they were nobodies. Like, I'd like to think that Kelly and I came in at least humble, trying to be nice to everybody and trying to get along and having fun. I mean, Russ was obviously a deterrent to that, but Ron and Don, they came in very arrogant, didn't they?
Yeah, they came in arrogant. I'm not even sure where they came from or what the whole story was. They just showed up one day, and I guess listening to Bob, they were forced on him from somewhere. But they came in with an attitude like they were number one, like they were Rush or something. That was after we got Stern. I'm thinking about the timeline. So when we first went over, when 1053 first flipped over, Rush was in mornings, and then Ed Hill and AW. And Rush offered Bob and Reed to do mornings and afternoons. They wanted to let AW go. And I don't know how far that went, but I know for sure Rush offered to do both morning and afternoon drive for a while until Stern came.
Well, I know about the Ron and Don stuff. I know that Kelly and I were supposed to go down there with Reed and do middays, but this was decided in October of 2000. Yeah, so it would have been October of 2000. Ron and Don had been brought in September and signed to a 1-year deal. And after Reed decided that he wanted Kelly and I there in middays, he called us fairly soon. And we're like, because, we were following the trades. We're like, well, you guys just hired a midday show. So this would be probably in January of 2001 when Kelly and I started doing the overnight show. We knew already that we were going to be taking over for Ron and Don and that they were just on a 1-year contract, which, if you look at objectively, is terribly unfair to them. And I don't know how that situation ever came to be, but that's the reason why they were putting us on overnights, because they knew that they were already going to have us in middays.
Oh,
so
wow.
Ron and Don were dead men walking for a good 10 months.
Yeah, they must not have known that, or if they did know that, maybe that's why they were so difficult. But yeah, they were difficult. And what we used to do on the buzz is they would talk crap about us on the buzz and the weekend shows. And I don't remember if it was Mish or if it was Bobby, but their call screener would tell me, hey, they talked about you at this time and send me the clip. And then we would replay the clip of them talking bad about us on the buzz and just make fun of them for an hour or two. So that's one thing we did. But they were terrible to deal with all around. So they weren't nice guys.
You mentioned a name a couple of times that we should talk about because we can't talk to him. But the Mish, tell people who the Mish was. The Mish has left us. The Mish sadly passed away a couple of years ago now. But tell us about what the Mish was, because you were one of those weekend guys with him.
Yeah, so Mish was a big guy. His name was Brian Beck, right? And he went by the Mish at 105.3. I think Ron and Don actually gave him that name, the Michelin Man. They say he looked like the Michelin Man. That's how he got the name, the Mish.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
Oh, you heard that.
No, I didn't. I honestly didn't. I didn't know his last name was Beck. I thought maybe his last name was Mish something. I don't know. I thought that's why he was called that. I never put that together until now.
Yeah.
He was obese. He was very obese.
Yeah, and so, he was a nice guy. Him and I didn't really get along a lot. We worked on Stern together, and there was a little power struggle there, and then I became assistant program director, and we started getting along a little better. But yeah,
because you were his boss. Because all of a sudden you had a little stroke over him, and funny how that works out.
But then he got on the air full time, and I never did there. So there you go. He kind of got the last laugh. But Mick was a nice guy. We just had our differences here and there, but we would butt heads a little bit, but we'd get the job done. So.
I was never, Mish was a fine guy. I was never a fan of that show. I was never a particular fan of his personality on the air. Later in life, it should be mentioned that Mish had an extreme makeover. He lost hundreds of pounds and became a personal trainer towards the end of his life. He lost a couple hundred pounds, right? That's pretty.
Yeah, he became a personal trainer and got in really good shape towards the end of his life.
But the thing about Mish that I didn't like, which is something I was like, I'm not going to give that guy the. Mish brought fire, man. He didn't give it. You want to talk about a shock jock? Mish was doubling down on the shock jock thing. Like, I remember, wait a second, was it Mish or you guys who got in trouble for the Dave Williams thing?
That wasn't us.
That doesn't mean anything to you?
Doesn't mean anything to me, so it must have been Mish.
Yeah. So Dave Williams, the singer of Drowning Pool, dropped dead.
Oh no, that was me. Okay.
That's how meaningless he was to Larry. He doesn't even remember.
So
that was me.
I've danced on so many corpses, I lost track. Yeah.
Because let me tell you something. I got called into a meeting with the program director, and we were told, do not mention this situation. Do not talk about what happened over the weekend. Apparently, the family had called CBS, or I don't know, it was a big deal. But what happened? What exactly was the story? Because I didn't hear it. I just know that it happened on a weekend show. I thought it was
explain who Dave Williams is.
Yeah.
Sure. I didn't know who he was, but he actually was friends with a guy on our show, and I was drunk and being stupid, and I really never should have done this. Again, 21-year-old drunk shock jock trying to be a shock jock, trying to be funny. So their big hit was "Let the Body See the Floor," right? That was the big hit. And so I came up with a
Dave
parody.
Williams was the lead singer of Drowning Pool.
And did a parody of that song because he supposedly died of a drug overdose. And then I played that parody, and we got in a little trouble for that one. I feel terrible about that. I was stupid. Yeah.
You learned where the line was. All kids learn where the line is.
I didn't get fired for that. I just got a little slap on the wrist for that.
Well,
What
no,
was the parody? What do you remember of the parody?
but wait,
I
they
think
were
that
local.
was the chorus. Let the needles hit the vein. Let the needles hit the vein. That's
Jeez.
Ooh.
like they were local, and like family members and stuff apparently became aware of this. And here's the thing: I think it was just too soon, right? I mean, I think it happened, and you
yeah.
were written a parody song in 24 hours.
It was really soon. I had another local, and just to change the subject and get the heat off me for this one, I feel really bad about that now. But I had some other dude from a local band, Pimpedelic, threatened to come to the station and wanted to kill me, and he was on his way up there with a gun.
Charles?
Was that was at Narrow Drive when we were having parking lot parties, because I called Repo Joe to make sure he was going to be there with his gun. I was like, dude, this guy may be coming up here to kill me. Are you coming up here with a gun?
No, was it Charles from Pimpedelic? Because he was a big 105.3 fan. He was always
I
hanging
don't
around.
remember who it was, but somebody wanted me to play a song on our show on the buzz, and I told them the song sucked and I wasn't going to play it, and they got really pissed. And so, yeah. Then I think I started making fun of him on the air or something like that, doing something I shouldn't have done, and that escalated the situation from there.
Yeah, he wasn't all right. You know, he was coming for you, man. I can tell you. I kept my distance from that guy. He wasn't all right. He was out there.
Is that the That's Charles that I think about, Charles?
I don't know. He was tattooed all over. Like he had neck tattoos.
Skinny. Yeah.
Dude had neck tattoos in the 90s.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
That ought to tell you how hardcore he was. Wasn't like some 2000s Calvin Klein fashion model trying to be ironic.
Right, neck tattoos used to mean something.
Yeah, they make you kill the man.
You were always very cordial to him though, but I knew there was a line. Like we would like we dance around it.
Yeah, Charles was one of these dudes who would always be like, "So where you guys going after this? Home to bed, Charles. We're not going anywhere else after this. We're going home to bed."
He was like the Eminem listener that threw the dude in the trunk, and then Eminem read like that video. That's who Charles was.
Hey, Larry, where were you for the flip? When Live 105.3 flip to the fan, do you have any recollection of that? Or, you know, where were you on this day kind of experience?
I don't remember. I was so far away from 105.3 then I wasn't listening, so I
No,
don't
we'll
remember.
just that at this part.
Listen, but real quick, back to the Pimpedelic dude threatening me. I went to Bob McNeil's office on Monday morning, and I had an email from him where he was threatening to kill me. I go, Bob, I'm getting death threats. What are we going to do about this? He goes, well, I guess you're doing your job, aren't you, Larry? And just laughed.
Oops.
That's the right response, though. What are you going to do? Call the cops? We had some weirdo say he's going to kill me.
Good old program director. Attention, one way or another, is good attention.
Well, also,
bad or good.
In the light of that story that you tell from 20 years ago, how many thousands of death threats have you gotten since then? And how ridiculous does it seem to be that you would even be concerned about one?
Well, that's the only one that stands out. So that's the only one I remember. So, yeah, I think I've got one death threat that I considered serious.
You know, I don't think it was Charles. I'm looking at Pimpedelic. I mean, I don't have the real names of the people in the band. All I've got is Easy Jesus, Madison, Dirty K, Cha Cha Ree. I don't know if any of those are Charles, but that's the guy who I knew from.
I think it was the Easy guy. That name sounds somewhat familiar to me. I don't know. I don't remember which one it was.
Cha Cha can be Charles.
Yeah, Easy Jesus can be Charles. I mean, you know, I don't know what name that's playing off of. Who knows? I don't know. Anyway, hey, Larry, in closing, you have anything you want to say? Because this has been wonderful. Thank you for strolling down memory lane with us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, no, I don't have anything. It was fun talking about the old days of 105.3. One more really quick story.
Please.
James, so I told you this last time I saw you, Pugs. When Facebook first came out, this was when I was working for the ranch. I wasn't at 105.3 anymore. I got an email from James that said he worked with me at 105.3 and wanted to go to lunch. I was thinking it was you. I didn't know your last name. I couldn't remember what it was. But I was like, yeah, dude, let's go to lunch. Let's grab a beer, whatever. It was a totally different guy that I never worked with and didn't remember showed up. And he was just like, hey, how are you? How you been? I was like, who are you? You're not who I thought it was. So it was Chops. Is that what y'all called it, Bud?
Chops!
Yeah,
James!
Do I know Chop?
Yeah, James.
Goldbreath.
Yeah, Galbraith,
Chops.
exactly.
Chops, one
Yeah,
of the most lovely
Chops.
people. His mom was so wonderful. His mom was like a hardcore Pugs of Kelly listener. She used to make me little woodworking things. They were wonderful people. I just learned Charles was gay. I did not know that Charles was gay. I think it was Jasmine who told me.
Not Charles
Gay.
James.
Yeah, Chops. Chops. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I was
What
still
got you gonna get a death threat, Bud?
Wait, did any of you guys know that Chops was gay?
I don't even know who
Yeah.
Chops is.
Did you know, Larry?
No, that was the first time I met him at that lunch. He said we worked together at 105.3, and I thought he was gay. So I had no clue who he was.
I figured it out at the end.
That he was gay?
Yeah.
How? I never did. He was just Chops. He was a 100% unique personality. Asexual, if you ask me. I didn't really think about him in that way.
There was something, and then I saw it confirmed on Facebook.
The giant lamb chops, though, were kind of flamboyant. They would like make you think that maybe he was into being a bit of a peacock. You know, if he could. He was just country. He was just a country peacock.
Yeah, no, not at all a flamboyant gay person.
No, not at all. Yeah,
No,
so I was like,
no.
yeah. Anyway, he seems very happy. He's in a lovely relationship with his husband. They seem happy. They got
Are
pictures.
you saying he had a beard?
No, I never.
I mean, metaphorical beard, kind of
No.
overlapping into the realistic beard.
He didn't. He just had giant lamb chop sideburns. He's, you know. I don't know.
Yeah, that was his, like, that made him kind of
Interesting.
remember, like you'd remember.
Hang on.
Really friendly. And we're talking about like he's dead. He's not dead. He seems very happy, but he was an incredibly friendly guy.
I have a point of order and
I think he went to work for the government.
Shut up. Hang on. Larry, what can we promote for you now? What are you doing now? Is there anything we can point people toward that you're doing now?
Yeah, so we got a couple of films out. A couple of Alexander Hamilton documentaries, Channeling Hamilton, The Channeling of Alexander Hamilton. Both of them are available on Amazon. Sons of God, Following Angels Explored, that just came out. It's available on Tubi. And I've got a film, Rapture, What Rapture, coming out on Tubi towards the end of the year.
What are you doing? You're doing a bunch of Christian stuff? Is this one?
Yeah, a bunch of Christian films now. You know, the shot got Jack's now a saved Christian, so my life's a lot different now than it was back then.
Yeah, that's fine. Good for them to begrudge no man their faith. Everybody should have a little something. But that's interesting because I understand that that's quite an economically positive genre to be in right now. The films for the right, films for the Christian right. That's actually pretty smart.
Yeah, so it's not about the money for me. It's about getting the word out there. But,
A little bit. It's about the money a little bit, Larry. It's okay.
The money's not.
It's okay. You're an American.
I'll be honest. I'm making more making films than I ever did in radio.
I bet.
Right?
All right. Well, Larry Stanley, thank you so much for being a part of this.
Yeah, thank you guys, man. It was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
And when we have
Man, a lot of details with Larry that we were unaware of. Like, I think this is probably one of the best backfill interviews that we've done of all of them.
well, Larry's, as I said, Larry's important because he was there before the rest of us, so he can give us, a little bit of an idea of what the mood was like there. So thank you so much. And Larry, when we have our big rap party, when we release this, we want to do a nice reunion, like a 105.3 reunion somewhere. We expect you to be present.
Unlike what you did to him there, you just clipped them out.
I didn't clip him out. I think James did. James got rid of him when James is taking over the show. This is why I don't like sharing that. Taking over the show. All right, you guys. Love you. We'll see you tomorrow at noon. Thank you to Larry Stanley. If you missed any of it, you can find all the interviews right there at pugscast.com. We'll be back tomorrow at noon for seemed to have the computer issue solved. Had a computer issue today during the noon show. That's why it was shorter than usual. I think that's fixed. Anyway, it worked for this show, so I'm guessing we'll see you tomorrow at noon. High noon. Hot topics, current events, all that good stuff. See you then. Bye, everybody. If you do, you'll always find some. Oh.